Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit new. This is the first one I'm hoping is going to be an entire series on the channel called Free the Pip Friday. About once a month or so, I'm going to try to open up a rare deck that maybe you hardly ever see opened up. And so I'll break out some of the rarer decks in my collection, give you guys a chance to see them. And if you want to vote on which deck I'll show off on the channel, make sure you're a subscriber. I'll be putting votes up on my channel page so you can chime in, give you a couple of choices, let you pick which deck you'd like to see. But without any further ado, let's get to this deck right here. Wanted to do something special for the very first Free the Pip Friday, and so I chose a new deck. This is the Eva Red Rose from Thirdway Industries. Now, this isn't the first Eva deck that's been produced. In fact, the original deck is this one right here. It goes all the way back to 2017 from a Kickstarter campaign. One of Giovanni's most popular and beautiful decks. He followed that up with the Eva Noir and Eva Paradis that I've looked at on the channel before. I did that earlier this year, but this deck right here, the Red Rose, is the rarest of them all. In fact, there's only 100 of these decks in existence. Now, the way this came to be, it started its life as a pile of overrun printings from the original Eva series. So the cards inside are going to have the same faces and backs as the original Eva decks, but when those overruns were printed as just sort of a contingency for the original deck, Giovanni decided to take them and make a really special edition out of them. And that's what you see here. They got a new tuck case, and the cards inside are gilded to really amp up the special nature of this deck. Of course, because they were made from the overrun decks, they're going to be a strict limit of just 100, limited to the number of decks that he had. So let's jump into it, take a look, and see how he did on this edition. All right, starting out with the tuck case, it's done on a beautiful, kind of a soft touch red matte paper here, really deep coloring on it, and it's covered with embossing and this magenta colored foil. It gives a really great effect just because as you hit this in the right light, it can almost disappear to red at certain angles. It can look black at some angles, but if you tilt it in the light just right, you see that purple just absolutely glow on all of those details. It's a great effect overall. Now the design on the front is going to be familiar if you've seen the other Eva decks before. It has the name of the deck Eva across the top and features the namesake of the deck right there in the center. This is Eva, patterned after Eve from the Christian tradition. She was the resident of the Garden of Eden, the first woman, and she basically unleashed sin on the world when she consumed the forbidden fruit, usually represented as an apple, and you can see that apple at her neck there. Really beautiful image of her there on the front. She has a couple of coiled snakes going up the sides. Very cool. You see these snakes appear all throughout the deck. The snake has a name. His name is Prometheus, and he's the symbol of freedom and rebellion for all of the different women that we're going to see in this deck. In this case, he's whispering temptation to Eva, tempting her to eat that forbidden fruit. At the bottom, you have this beautiful ornate heart, and then the background is covered with these sort of hieroglyph symbols. These symbols actually loosely tell the story of some of the characters in the deck, but we'll of course get to their stories in a second. Finishes out with a nice picture frame style border around the edge, and that is the front of the tuck case. On the sides, you've got Eva on one side and on the other. Some ad copy for Thirdway as well as USPCC, who printed the deck, on the bottom. And then the top just says Eva, but it's covered up by that tuck seal. The back's going to be a foiled and embossed version of the back of the cards. One last great look at that magenta foil. And you get a custom tuck seal. This is a similar seal to the ones that are used on the other Eva decks, but this one's done in silver and black, features more of those hieroglyphic symbols, and it's individually numbered. You can see I got number 65 out of the 100 deck edition. So that is the outside of the tuck case. As you open up the inner flap here, a little bit hard to get open. Inner flap features a little bit more detail. One more look at that apple, the symbol of temptation in the center. You have these little circular emblems on the inner flaps, and nothing printed on the interior of the tuck case. So that is the fantastic tuck case. Beautiful artwork all the way through on this one. But let's get into the cards. And the first thing as you open it up, you're going to notice is the beautiful gilding. And here it is, done in a deep red to match that tuck case. And it's a really smooth gilding that's done on these. No flaking or anything like that on these. Really beautiful effect. And you can see there the image of my thumbnail there, just a really great mirror finish on that deep blood red foil. And it's a great match to the backs of the cards, which are also primarily red. So great foiling on gilding on this deck. Love that addition. But speaking of the backs of the cards, meant to match that red gilding, here they are. Now these are going to be, familiar if you've seen the original Eva deck. Like I said, the backs and the faces are the same. And this was a really interesting color to use, this red and black, particularly with the original deck. You can imagine this white tuck and then pulling out these just super dark colored cards out of it. But they look equally impressive coming out of the red tuck for the Red Rose edition. The background features design that we saw on the tuck case itself. You have these reflected images in the two-way back design of Eva once again represented. You have Prometheus, the snake, curled up at her side, the two hearts ornate and kind of meeting in the center to form that border. More of those hieroglyphs in the background and that picture frame border finishing in that nice thin poker border on the outside. So beautiful design to these. Love the details. Like I said before, unmistakably Giovanni Moroni. You recognize his characters as soon as you see them. So there is the back design of the cards done in that beautiful red. But let's get into the cards themselves. And we'll start out talking a little bit about the number cards, mostly because these are, nothing really all that special. They're fairly ordinary number cards. They feature smaller than average pips, but not too ornate or customized pips, just slight customization on these. The one extra touch you'll get is this line of symbols going on underneath the Pippin Index in the corner. Done in gold metallic ink, they will loosely tell the story of the characters from that suit. We'll look at their stories in a second, but you can get a little bit of a hint of it here. So as you go through the number cards, nothing too special. I will say they are one-way number cards, meaning all of the pips are facing the same direction. Usually if you get out like a bicycle deck or something, you'll see some of the pips are alternating in direction. That way the card will kind of look normal whether you flip it upside down or not. But these are all one-way designs. The diamonds and the rest of the suits all kind of follow the same pattern. Nothing too special on these. They're fairly standard. Clubs are probably the most custom of the four suits. And then into the hearts, and that finishes off the number cards. But with any Giovanni Moroni deck, the highlight is going to be in the court cards. And the court cards and the aces, the jokers that we're going to finish up with, they really tell the story of the deck. Now, the pattern of the deck here, it features an all-female cast of cards. And the females here are some of the first women from different cultures. So you use different cultures, different mythologies, drew upon their first women and told their story through the court cards. All of the court cards are female, and they all feature for each suit the same character. It's a chronological tale through each one of their stories. So we're gonna get into them in turn. We're gonna start out with the spades, and this is the story of Pandora. Pandora comes from Greek mythology, was originally created by Hephaestus and Athena on Zeus's command. And she was created as punishment because Prometheus had stolen the secret of fire from the gods. And so she was a punishment to man, created at Zeus's command, like I said, and given this mysterious box that you see over here, came to be known as Pandora's box. So here is the Jack of Spades. We see Pandora in her first form. This is the gift of Zeus. Still fairly innocent, fairly pure. You can see those lightning bolts as a symbol of Zeus behind her. The still sealed box at her side. Zeus had told her never to open that box. The entire design is done in a beautiful mixture of gold and green metallic. You can see some of the green metallic here on these ribbons, and it really just sort of gives a subtle but interesting pop against that gold. So there is a Pandora as the gift of Zeus. But she doesn't leave that box alone. So here we see her as the curious betrayer. Prometheus, the snake, has made an appearance over here again, and he's whispering some temptation in her ear. And so now she's kind of curious about that box over there and wondering if she should maybe open it. So now we see her there with that curious and mischievous gleam in her eye as she is now the curious betrayer. But now we turn and she kind of gives into that temptation on the King of Spades. Here she is as the traitor of humanity. She decides to open up that box, and when she does so, unleashes all of the evil, the pain, the anguish on the world. That was what was kept inside. You can see that evil represented, by these demon wings over here, maybe the spear representing war. And there's only one thing left in the box. The one thing that didn't escape the box was hope, and you can see that peeking out over there. So there is Pandora as the traitor of humanity. And we get an epilogue to her story on the Ace of Spades. We see Pandora now almost taking on an evil look with the demoness wings behind her, all done in beautiful gold metallic ink. The spade pip is made up of Pandora's box at the bottom with the swirl of the evils that were released from within. So a really beautiful Ace of Spades. All four of the aces are going to tell kind of the epilogues of the four different stories and be kind of power aces in their own right. So that's the story of the Spades and Pandora. Now next we're going to go to a little bit more obscure of a first woman story. This is Lilith. Lilith comes from a Jewish tradition. And she was said to be the first woman created out of the same dirt that Adam was created from in the Garden of Eden. Lilith originally, and you can see her here at the Jack of Diamonds, as the true first woman. Very pure, very innocent looking. I love the bald look to her head. Definitely kind of lends itself to that feeling of purity. Those beautiful gold tones in the back and the little pops of color with the red. Now, we'll say, didn't mention it before, but there is some nudity on the court, so you can see her there with the breast bared. That's not uncommon with some of the Giovanni decks, and you'll see that kind of continue on some of the other courts. But there's Lilith as the true first woman, but eventually in the Garden of Eden, Adam tries to basically imprison her and kind of dominate over her. And so here she is now as the prisoner queen. You can see the chain wrapped across her chest as a symbol of her bondage to Adam. And she's looking definitely a little bit less happy, a little bit less pure in this one. Kind of has that far away, distant, and unhappy look in her eyes. I love how that red hair, by the way, really pops against this one. But there is the story of the Queen of Diamonds, and now Lilith as the prisoner queen. But she didn't just live with that bondage. She decided she wanted to escape, and so she grew wings, flew away from the Garden of Eden, and eventually married joined with the demon Samael. Samael was a fallen angel, and he corrupted Lilith and brought her into a demoness form. So you see her here now on the King of Diamonds as the first rebel. She definitely has a more evil and demon look to her, with the fangs and the red eyes, the demon wings growing out of her back. And so she's kind of risen out of her bondage from Adam. And because of this, she's today viewed not even necessarily as an evil character. I know we said she became a demoness, but she's also viewed as a powerful character for standing up to Adam the way that she did. So there is Lilith now as the first rebel. And in the epilogue on the Ace of Diamonds, here's Lilith again with that beautiful diamond pip underneath, all done in that kind of blood red color. So there are the diamonds in the story of Lilith. Going now to the clubs, we're going to go back to Greek mythology, another version of a creation story. This is the story of Pira. Pira was the daughter of Pandora, who we just talked about, but she was kind of a savior or creator of humanity in her own right. She, along with her husband Deucalion, were two of the only survivors from the flood that was sent by Zeus to end the Bronze Age. And so they were, Zeus had sent a flood to basically destroy the whole world, and Pira here ultimately survived. And so here we start her story off with her at the Annunciation. The Annunciation was where, and we see our snake friend over here, Prometheus warned her of the impending flood from Zeus. and gave her that warning, the announcement or the annunciation of that flood, so that she could prepare and escape on an ark. And so you can see her there eyeing the serpent to her side, the bolts of Zeus kind of signifying that impending flood as well. I'm done back again to those green and gold colors on the black cards. Now as we go to the Queen of Clubs, this is her as the Queen of Deluge. And here you've got the flood going on in the background. You can see the raindrops out of the window of the ark that she's riding. And she has that kind of pensive look on her face as she awaits the end of the flood. So there she is now as the Queen of Deluge. And then finally is her as the Mother of the World. And it was said that once the flood was finally over, she and her husband were able to repopulate the entire world, basically by throwing the bones of Gaia, represented by stones, throwing those over her shoulder, and where those landed, the first men sprouted up. And so here she is, standing proud and strong after surviving the flood. You can see the stone there in the background, symbolizing those stones that she tossed over her shoulder. So there you go, Pira as the Mother of the World. And here she is again in the epilogue. You can see the 3 stones behind her, representing those that she threw over, those bones of Gaia that she threw over to create mankind. It's a beautiful image of her and the heroic act that she was able to, that gift she was able to give to mankind. And last but not least, we're going to talk about Eva herself. She gave her name to the deck, probably the most famous of all first women from any culture. Eva is, of course, inspired from the Christian tradition. And here on the Jack, we see her as the first lover. She was paired with Adam, pure, innocent. I love that kind of very pure look on her face with her eyes closed, very serene look to her. And so here she is early on in the Garden of Eden. As we turn to the Queen of Hearts, though, she becomes the temptress. Once again, Prometheus, the snake, makes an appearance, and Eva obviously is listening. She's kind of got that curious look on her face as she listens, and Prometheus is tempting her to eat the forbidden fruit, the apple from the tree of knowledge. God had forbidden Eva or her husband to eat that apple, but Prometheus has other ideas. And she does finally eat that apple and is cast out of the Garden of Eden, where she becomes basically the mother of all of humanity, because she was where all of creation started. And so we see her here as the Queen of the world. Not ashamed of the knowledge she gained by eating from the tree of knowledge, not ashamed of the fact that she'd been cast from the Garden of Eden. She has this very proud, strong look on her face here, with the serpent by her side as she goes on to become that Queen of the world. And here she is in her epilogue, a very proud look to her, the apple in front of her, the 2 snakes coiled up the side as well, and then her name, Eva, and the name of the deck represented at the bottom. So that's the story of Eva told through the hearts. You also get 4 jokers. The jokers all show the 4 women that we just looked at, but also show the men who played a significant role in their story. So revisiting them, we have Pandora here with the box in front of her, Zeus, her creator, above her, and the one who sent her to the worlds. You see Zeus surrounded by the lightning bolts represented at the top. The second joker now represents Lilith. There she is at the bottom, and she's standing with Samael, the demon who ultimately corrupted her. There's Lilith and Samael making their appearance on the second joker. The third one goes back to the story of Pira, features her and her husband Deucalion. The 2 survived that flood and ultimately were able to repopulate the world. And last but not least is Eva. Of course, she is paired with her husband, her mate, Adam. The 2 of them lived in the Garden of Eden, were cast out together by God. So Adam and Eva make their appearance on the 4th joker. So that's it. That is the beautiful designs, the beautiful story of the deck. That is it. I'm not going to talk too much about handling or anything like that. Gilded decks are not necessarily known for their handling, although I will say these do handle impressively well. That said, this isn't a deck you're going to practice with cardistry or anything like that. This is really just an art and collector's deck. In fact, I would wager that, of the 100 decks that are out there, probably 97 or 98 of them never get opened. And so that's why I thought it would be a great deck to share with you guys for Free the Pip Friday. But fantastic deck to have in the collection. Hopefully some of you guys were able to grab one of these as part of the 2020 Black Friday sale. Maybe keep an eye out for them on the secondary market if you're interested in getting one. But anyway, that's it for this look at the Eva Red Rose. Love having this one in the collection. Hey, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more deck reviews and unboxings. If you want to vote on upcoming Free the Pip Friday selections, make sure you're there. All right, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.